it's working. Hare Krishna. Okay, Jai. So yes, we're by nature active. So the question comes then, what kind of activity? So karma means activity. So there are different types of karma or activity. That activity which is pious in accordance with the Vedic injunctions, karma kanda, Vedic injunctions, that is punya karma or sukarma. It's a pious. And the result is that one will generate good karma and he'll be elevated to higher birth in the next life, in a higher planet or, some very wealthy family or whatever. And then vikarma or pap is a sinful activity. That means there's no care at all for the religious injunctions. Even like other religious processes, they also have distinction between pious and impious activity. By pious activity you can go to heaven, and impious activity you go to hell. So the Bhagavatam is describing in great detail different kinds of hellish planets, the types of punishment one would get for different kinds of sinful activity. So generally in the material world, people are performing pious or impious activities. In Kali Yuga, of course, the number of people performing impious activity keeps on increasing and increasing. Therefore, the whole world is becoming more and more disturbed and hellish. More and more quarrels and disputes, court cases, wars, dispute within the family, etc., etc. So this is a result of sinful activity. Prabhupada, once he said that they're having wars, big wars, because they're slaughtering so many cows. So the war is inevitable because of the sinful activities of human beings. But there's a third kind of activity. So what's that called? Akarma, yes. Means no reaction, no karmic reaction. So what's that? What's your name, Prabhu? Hare Krishna. Prabhupada had a disciple also, Padmalochan. So yes, what is that action, that akarma? Yeah, but in practical terms, what is that?
Activities where there's no reaction to your activity.
Yes, correct. What is that activity? Yes, yes, yes. Devotional service to Krishna, because that is activity under the direction of the Supreme Lord and His representatives, the Acharyas and the Vaishnavas. They show us, they teach us how to perform akarma, devotional service to Krishna. So it's very purifying, it's very uplifting, it doesn't create good or bad karma, rather it develops one's attachment to Krishna, one's love for Krishna. It prepares one for life in the spiritual world. It's like a period of practice. Someone is engaged in devotional service. He's preparing for life in the spiritual world. And even if he doesn't attain the spiritual world after leaving this body, he would be born as a devotee in a family of devotees. And he would get the opportunity for practicing devotional service from childhood, just like Prahlad Maharaj. Prabhupada gave more lectures on the 7th canto of Bhagavatam on the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj than on any other topic, than from any other part of the Bhagavatam. And he was very keen to see that the children from birth and from a young age were trained in Krishna consciousness, could go to Gurukula and could become nice devotees. Just as he himself probably said it, I and my spiritual master, we are very fortunate to be born in a Vaishnav families. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was a son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayed that a ray of Vishnu would appear as his child to help him spread Krishna consciousness, and his prayers were answered in the form of one son who he named Bimal Prasad, spotless mercy, who appeared in the holy place of Jagannath Puri, the time Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a magistrate in Puri, district magistrate. He was also the overseer or manager of the Jagannath Puri temple, and he had a house on a grand avenue. I believe now there's a Gaudiya Math temple there at that spot. So that child appeared there in that holy place. At his birth, the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, a sign of a born Brahmana. When he was just a few months old, Rathayatra took place. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's appearance day will be soon in early February. And Rath Yatra is usually June or July, so it's a few months, 4 months or so. Anyway, the rat cart was passing their home and stopped outside Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. So, being the wife of the magistrate, his wife was able to get up on the cart and place the child at the lotus feet of Lord Jagannath, and a garland fell from Lord Jagannath around the child. So this is a special blessing. So this most elevated birth. And Prabhupada, or Srila Prabhupada also, his father Gaur Mohan Dey was a Vaishnava. And from childhood he taught Prabhupada how to worship deities. He bought him small Radha Krishna deities, and young Abai and his friends were offering mud cakes to the deities. He also wanted to have a Rath Yatra. His father managed to find a small Rath Yatra cart and bought it from one lady, so he and Abai and his friends could have a Rath Yatras. Regularly they went to Radha Govinda temple, which was across the road from their home. And also he taught Prabhupada to play mridanga. And there's a nice video clip of Prabhupada, sitting, he was recording bhajans and he was playing the mridanga. Prabhupada used to record different tracks, he harmonium and sing, and also he played mridanga. So there's a nice video clip. He's just completed singing, or just about to start. He was in I think they were recording Krishna meditations at the time. Maybe it was recorded in Germany, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not 100% sure. But Ellie, was it? Mm-hmm. Anyway, Prabhupada was, he was sitting with the mridanga, and then he was smiling, and he pointing at the mridanga. He said, "My father wanted me to be like this, to be a Vaishnava, to chant Hare Krishna." And mother wanted to send him to UK for higher education so he could become a lawyer, but his father didn't want him to be spoiled by going and associating with the gross materialists, the meat eaters. I mean, the British at the time, they were very demoniac. They were, expanding their empire all over the world, but by very cruel means, because they had, superior weaponry. The British fleet was very powerful. They had all kinds of cannons and, so-called advanced weaponry for the time. So they were able to subjugate people all over the world, including here in Australia. I saw the report on Australia Day, but that's called Invasion Day by Aboriginal people and others, who object to the, colonial mentality. Another thing they did, and it was very horrible actually, in Bengal they were growing opium, vast quantities. I mean, Bengal is a very fertile place, so they were growing vast quantities of opium. Then they were exporting it to China, and many people became opium addicts. So it's a very detrimental effect on a Chinese population. At one point, a government tried to ban it, but still the British were going and parking their, big ships off the Chinese coast, opium ships, and then the various criminal elements would come and do deals with them. In this way, they kept, forcing opium down the throats of the Chinese people. It's why they, Chinese call it century of humiliation that they had to undergo. There are other aspects of it also, but I mean, that's one of the aspects. It's a very cruel and very sinful also. So, these people were gross materialists. I mean, it's our forefathers, I think, or many of our forefathers at any rate. And they were drunkards, they were, flesh eaters, cow eaters, all forms of sinful activities. So this is, nature of Kali Yuga, and Prabhupada father didn't want him to go and live in such an environment. And he wanted him to grow up as a nice Vaishnava, and fortunately, his father's desire prevailed over his, mother's desire, and he became a great Vaishnava. Of course, he went to the college, Scottish Churches College. It's a British college, and received his education there, but then he became a follower of Gandhi and refused to accept his diploma. So in youth he was a follower of Gandhi, but then he came in contact with his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in 1922. At first he didn't want to go there because he'd seen many sadhus come to his father's house, and mostly they were, more interested in just having a nice meal. And Prabhupada, actually, he mentions also that it's in a conversation that my father, he was a nice Vaishnava, but he was very liberal. And he said he used to send me to visit one sadhu with some gifts, so some saffron cloth, some ghee, and some small packets of ganja. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked him, how was that, And Prabhupada said, my father was he was a Vaishnava, he was very liberal. And in India at the time, in all the ashrams, most of the ashrams, he said, they would smoke ganja, and people, they didn't take it very seriously. Sadhu. I mean, even today, I guess, if you go to Kumbh Mela, there are all kinds of varieties of sadhus, and some of them are smoking ganja. But Prabhupada said, we learned from our spiritual master, no intoxication. So he said, in high-class ashrams, they followed the standards properly. 4 regulative principles. No gambling, illicit sex, intoxication, or meat eating. And so Prabhupada also established that standard throughout ISKCON. Yes, well, okay. I've gotten a bit sidetracked here. Hare Krishna. In principle, we have to be active, so we have to select the type of activity which is most purifying and most uplifting, which is devotional service. So devotees, obviously, they have desires also, and therefore that's recommended here in the purport. Prabhupada saying one should live a life of piety, follow the religious rules and regulations, marry and live peacefully for elevation to the higher status of spiritual realization. So it's a gradual process. Definitely better one is pious than impious, and piety can be a good preparation for taking to devotional service, though sometimes people become too much attached to the mode of goodness, too much attached to pious activity, and it hinders their taking up Krishna consciousness, whereas sometimes in other cases a person suffers so much from impious activity, and it acts as a impetus to take shelter of Krishna consciousness. So there may be, exceptions and different ways in which people come to Krishna consciousness. I think a lot of the young people of my generation, anyway, we became so wild and so much engaged in a hippie life, so-called hippie life, that it got burned out early on. So, but at the same time, there was a strong influence in that generation towards, meditation, Buddhism, things like that. I was a vegetarian a couple of years before I became a devotee due to those influences. So that, there was impiety and piety mixed up together, but somehow that was a good impetus to take up Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada came just at the right time to give Krishna consciousness to the world, because there's so many young people, who are already living a somewhat detached life. Prabhupada did say that the hippies, they are somewhat, renounced. We would travel around and sleeping on the ground in the street here and there, hitchhiking here and there. So it was a austere type of life. It wasn't difficult to adjust to the life in the temple. When I joined the movement, Prabhupada was in London there in August 71, and a lot of American devotees had come on their way to India and on their way to Nairobi. I think Prabhupada went from there to Nairobi, and then he went to India because he wanted to spread Krishna consciousness in Africa. He was very keen. And one of my first services was to drive Bhavananda and Naranarayan to the airport to get their plane, And they booming loud voice. I was just a young bhakta, I was trembling, these big American devotees. I remember waking up, we slept in the shower room. The whole temple was packed up. We were sleeping in the shower room. In the morning, there was only one shower in the corner. It was just a regular room, and they had fitted a shower in the corner. So the light went on 3 a.m. in the morning, and these big American devotees were stepping over us to get into the shower. But, we were accustomed to that kind of austere life, so it wasn't very difficult to adjust. It was such a boost to come into the association of the devotees who were, they were so effulgent, so enthusiastic, fired up, as we say. And it was really uplifting. Such a wonderful experience, and easy to stay in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada also, at the same time, he was a very powerful spiritual master. He had deep knowledge of the scriptures. He could explain the philosophy in a very relevant and powerful way. And, so all the ingredients were there, and it was all vegetarian. All the food was offered to Krishna. So, not difficult. I think nowadays it takes, it's a much more gradual process, Just like here, we say the village down there, and then if people become interested, they can move to a Krishna pad, and then gradually get more understanding, more training, then they can move to the ashrams, But those days, I guess, Ramai Maharaj, the same thing. Just dive in at the deep end. So yes, anyway, this is the ideal activity, to be engaged in devotional service, and in this way there's no room for sinful activity, either either karmakanda activity or sinful activity. One has to fill his life up with Krishna consciousness. What's that example Prabhupada gave? If you have a glass of ink and you pour out it's an unusual example, you pour out the ink, but the atmosphere is inky, it will again fill up with ink. But if you pour out the ink, and clean the glass, I guess, and put in milk, then no, even the atmosphere is ink, it can't enter into the glass. So that's the principle. If someone is seriously practicing Krishna consciousness and fully engaged in devotional service, then there's no time for Maya. Even though Maya is all around, people are in Maya in general, they cannot, enter into your consciousness, it cannot change your consciousness. Of course, we need association of devotees, sadhu sangha, to give strength, but that's why Prabhupada created ISKCON, to give the opportunity for devotees to live together, to practice together, and to have all varieties of engagement. In this way, they can be fully engaged in devotional service, and then no time for Maya. So this is the path that we're following. Kardama Muni is a great example. He did have a desire to marry, but he did it all under the guidance of the Lord, and everything was arranged in a very, nice way, in which, as Maharaj was relating yesterday, Swayambhuva Manu came with his wife and brought a Devahuti, who had heard of Kardama, and there was a natural attraction between them. And as Maharaj also mentioned, generally in Vedic society, there's astrological charts of boy and girl are done. The parents try to, match the boys and girls so that the marriage will last and there be no divorce. So Kardama Muni this is an ideal example how to get married with the blessings of the Lord. And of course, he was able to fulfill his desires, and Lord also appeared as his son, and ultimately he was able to renounce family life and focus himself fully in devotional service and Krishna consciousness. So, any comment or question today? Yes, please.
You were talking about how Srila Prabhupada's father was quite lenient, regarding the marijuana, but his spiritual master was very strict, and so the higher class temples, follow this stricter standard. And most of our devotees in ISKCON follow strictly. There may be some lenient devotees who not so strict, but these days more we're finding some of these drugs like marijuana or maybe opium are used for medicinal purposes, and some devotees may use them because they have a lot of pain in their body. They get a lot of relief from these drugs in the form of medicinal form. Would you like to comment on that?
Yes, that's all right, that they're used for medicinal purposes. In India, when I first went there, then we used to take some Ayurvedic medicine called Kalmeg. I don't know if any of you know that. Jayapataka Maharaj used to take it. It was very good for your digestion, but it contained some alcohol. But for medicinal purposes, that's okay. People had liver problems and that, we would take Kalmeg. Yeah.
Just on that comment, can you self-ascript, is that the word? Because I find some people who say, oh, I'm using it for medicinal reasons, but they're their own doctor.
Well, not exactly a good idea. I mean, you should be recommended by persons who are qualified. But Prabhupada recommended it to the devotees, actually. Mm-hmm. Well, it's just a small content. It's not like alcohol. There are other medicines which have Ayurvedic, which have more, which are sometimes taken in larger quantity. You have to be careful of. A Kalmeg, you just take a little in the cap of the bottle, just a little bit, a little hit, as it were. But it's good for digestion and the liver.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, thank you for the class. You're mentioning also that Prabhupada mentioned that we should be engage all our time in Krishna's service, so there's no room for Maya. But we see that even in our own example, that we may be engaged, but then there's slip-ups in the consciousness. So it's more than just external engagement. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Well, at least external engagement, is a preparation to, purify the words and the thoughts. I think Vishwanath Chakravarti mentions, it's in maybe Madhurya Kadambini, that we are active on 3 levels. The soul's energy is manifested on the physical level, on the vocal level, and on the mental level. So it's easier to become fully engaged on the physical level first, and gradually one, learns how to chant Hare Krishna, to talk about Krishna. So then you're engaged on the vocal level in Krishna. The most difficult is to engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. But by constant practice, then gradually the mind becomes purified more and more and thinks more and more about how to serve Krishna. So, there's a gradual process, but, those are different levels. But anyway, even if it's a bit difficult to control the mind, never mind, go on practicing. And, if we're engaged in some service which is interesting and challenging for us, then our mind will, tend to think about how to do one's devotional service. Once, I think it was in Bombay, a devotee was engaged in a construction, and he went to Srila Prabhupada. He said, I think Prabhupada, better I go to Vrindavan and just chant Hare Krishna. When I'm chanting japa, I keep thinking about cement and steel, and construction. And Prabhupada looked at it, he said, I also find the same thing, he said. Continue with your service. So we may think of our service, that's all right. But best, of course, to be fully focused on the transcendental vibration of the mantra when we're chanting. But better be thinking of our service than something which is completely out of Krishna consciousness. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.